And the surgeon said these words: if we don't do emergency surgery, you only have about a 50% chance of making it, but you almost have a 100% chance that you won't be able to bend your wrist anymore. And so at that time, I thought, okay, I'm a drummer and I'm a chiropractor. How's that going to work out? Welcome to Root Cause Holistic Health. I'm Dr. Jon Harmon, physician, brain health expert, and your host on this no-fluff journey into whole body healing.
And I'm Tracey Green, wellness coach, mom, and co-host. This is the space where we get real about what actually heals, not just what's trending.
If you're done with surface level advice and ready to understand your body, your mind, and your health from the inside out, this podcast is for you.
We're here for the raw conversations most people avoid. We don't sugarcoat, we don't shame. We offer tools, truths, and transformation.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Jon Harmon, and my producer has asked me to give our listeners a little bit of background on who I am, what I've been doing for the last more than 30 years, actually getting closer to 40 now, so that you would understand what drives me, where I'm coming from, why we're starting a podcast called Root Cause Holistic. In order to understand that about me, you have to understand that I wanted to be in natural healthcare since I was a little boy. And then when I was about 12 years old, my mom was taking my little brother somewhere. And I said, "Where are you going, Mom?" She said, I'm taking Dan to the chiropractor because he has asthma. And my first thought, well, that's kind of odd. How's that going to do anything? And when he came back, he didn't have it anymore. And that really got my attention. I thought, wouldn't that be great to be able to do something like that with your hands and just help people? So I embarked on that journey. I started my practice in 1990, started helping people that way. I got certified in chiropractic extremity adjusting and was helping people with sports injuries. I was one of the chiropractors for the NCAA track meets twice in here in Boise. I was one of the chiropractors for the Boise Nike Open for 20 years. But I had expanded into oxidative medicine, where we, our scope of practice in Idaho for 30 years, we could do injections and infusions. And I had been doing that for quite a while and helping people with chronic Lyme, Epstein-Barr, mold. I'd even started treating people with alternative care for cancer. And prolozone injections, that's injecting with ozone, B vitamins, and procaine. And then the FDA changed the law, and now every vitamin that was given in an IV or in an injection was now a prescription. So we had to stop doing that. It was during that time that my 18-year-old niece committed suicide in March of 2010. And in March of 2011, my oldest daughter's husband was murdered. And then the next year, my sister, just 2 years older than I, died. And my granddaughters, my daughters had terrible anxiety and depression, and they were going to a counselor and getting prescription drugs for about 4 years, and none of that was working. And so I went on a journey to try to help my family get better. And I brought neurofeedback into my practice and started doing that. And in the midst of that, I had to have some dental work done. And I went to the dentist and said, I have to put a dental dam in because of this procedure. And I said, oh man, I get all claustrophobic. He said, yeah, we'll do a dental dam, but we'll put you under conscious sedation. I said, great. So I woke up and the dentist said these words. That was so bad that I had to do a root canal. And needless to say, I was in shock. I was just coming out of the, conscious sedation. And, when you're coming out of that, you can say anything. So luckily I had enough self-regulation, even under the drugs, influence of the drugs. And I didn't tear the building down. I wanted to, He could have easily said, "I had to cut your right foot off," and it would have had about the same meaning. I would, obviously upset. Several weeks later, I don't know the exact time, but the root canal was in October. And then sometime in November, just prior to Thanksgiving, or the week prior to Thanksgiving, my right wrist started to hurt like unbelievably bad. And I thought I sprained it or something because I'd been working in the yard a little bit and raking leaves and doing that kind of thing. But one night, I woke up in the middle of the night and I couldn't even stand up. I was shaking so bad. And we went to the emergency room. They took my blood. I'm in the emergency room. The doc comes in and he said, and I told them, I have an infection. You need to do a joint aspiration and an MRI. They said, well, we took your blood. You don't have any markers of inflammation or infection. We think you have gout. And I looked him in the eye and I said, I don't have gout. I've never had any kind of metabolic issues at all. That's, I, I don't have gout. They said, you don't have any markers of infection or inflammation. And I said, well, do I have an increased uric acid in my bloodstream? And they said, well, no, 30% of the time you won't. So here's some colchicine and endomethacin and, booted me out. I'll never forget his words. He said, I don't see anything emergent here. So went home, gave me some pain pills. It's getting worse. I go back in the emergency room, sent me home, nothing emergent. Finally went in the day before Thanksgiving and I said, man, I'm going down. Um, and there was a different doctor there and he listened to me. They did a joint aspiration and then called me the next day and said, you have a staph infection. You need to come into the hospital. And the surgeon said these words, if we don't do emergency surgery, you only have about a 50% chance of making it, but you almost have a 100% chance that you won't be able to bend your wrist anymore. And so at that time, I thought, okay, I'm a drummer and I'm a chiropractor. How's that going to work out? Not being able to bend my wrist. I still chose life and they did the surgery. I was out of work for 2.5 months. I mean, I had a pick line. I went from working out. My wife and I would get up at 3:50 in the morning so we could get to the gym by 4:20. I went from that to I have a pick line in my left axillary area. I can't get that wet, and I can't get the other side wet. I can't even move my hand. So there's a lot of soul searching that went on. I did a little bit of feeling sorry for myself, but after a while, I had accepted that what I have been doing to this point in my life is not who I am. It's what I did. And it wasn't until I got to that point of acceptance that I was able to move beyond it. I mean, it was consuming me. I was on the opioid drugs, it was in so much pain. And I said, okay, all right, I'm going to be the best at this brain stuff. So while I was convalescing at home, I studied to be board certified in reading QEEGs and doing neurofeedback. Then I took courses in functional neurology, laser therapy, and I noticed correlations in all of those industries. First of all, I noticed that the part of the brain where the parasympathetic neurons are, when we would do QEEGs, that's the electrical balance in the brain or imbalance. Every single person had this one reading that showed that their parasympathetic was underpowered. They couldn't fire it up. And everyone, it starts with some event, head trauma, emotional trauma, or chemical exposure, and it causes a shift in the regulation, the electrical regulation in the brain, and it makes it so they're stuck in sympathetic freeze, which then inhibits or basically sucks all the power out of the opposite side of that system, which is the parasympathetic. So I designed some treatments that were specifically targeting the activation of the parasympathetic, which then reciprocally inhibits down the sympathetic. And it turns out it worked. And I started a place called Clear Mind, Idaho, where we help people with brain issues. And now we've helped thousands of people get their brain right. Everything from anxiety and depression, insomnia, cognitive decline, autism, seizures, tremors, ADHD, ADD, all of those things get better when the electrical activity in the brain is regulated. So we use a combination of microcurrent neurofeedback, we use lasers, and we use autonomic balancing to accomplish that. So that's how I got where I am. Some people, when I initially was doing all this brain stuff, they said, well, what qualifies you to be this? You were a chiropractor. And yeah, that's right. But I was led in a different direction and I embraced it. And I said, this is not going to be the end of my story. I get to write the last chapters. And here we are in the midst of it and about to embark on this exciting journey of root cause holistic. Ironically, a root canal is what shifted me, but how apropos. And our goal is to help you unpack and sort through all of the different opinions, the different, some people call misinformation, disinformation. Well, that's just a way of saying, I don't agree with you and I'm going to denigrate and devalue what you say because mine is, I think mine is not disinformation. I think mine is true. We're going to help you unpack that so that you can decide for yourselves. So tune in, join with us on this journey with us of finding out the deep root cause of things that affect humans, that affect our kids, so that we can navigate through that and maintain our health as we get older. We'll see you on the next podcast. Thanks for tuning in to Root Cause Holistic Health. We're here to help you uncover what's really going on and empower you to take the next step in your healing journey.
Whether you're a mom, a dad, or just someone ready to stop settling for Band-Aid fixes, we hope today's episode gave you something to think about.
If you found this episode valuable, do us a favor, share it with someone you love, and leave a review so we can reach more families like yours.
Make sure to hit follow so you don't miss next week's episode. We've got more honest conversations, practical tips, and root cause wisdom coming your way.
Until next time, stay grounded, stay curious, and most of all, stay connected to what truly matters.
We'll see you next time on Root Cause Holistic Health.